I'm Sergio Chacón. I'm a psychologist. I have a master's degree in community and social psychology. I'm academic at the um, Catholic University of Temuco, and I'm also director for Latin American GIS. The job that is more related to implementation science is my second job as development chief in a NGO that works for women that are or have been in jail. And in that position, my responsibilities are to check evidence, to design programs for them, evaluate programs, and supervise the implementation of the programs that we design. Implementation science with that name, I heard of a meeting from a friend, that a GIS meeting, and I signed in and found out that implementation science exists. Okay. When I started to read the literature about it and talk with other people, I realized that I've been always involved in implementation since my first job. So now I can put a name on what I've been doing for my whole professional life. I would go for a ethical impact first. I think that policymakers, NGOs, and business in general have the responsibility with society to commit with social relevant outcomes with anything that they do. Let me explain. I think that policymakers, the state, has to be sure that every program, every project, every plan get the outcomes intended. And I think that implementation science have the potential to be a important part of this process to assure that, and that's an ethical responsibility, not just a technical responsibility. And I think that is even more relevant in countries like ours, with a huge gap of equity among different populations in our countries. So I think that is the main potential. I think that implementation science can be a very useful tool to make sure that resources are used as is intended. We have the experience in our countries that millions and millions of dollars are spent in programs that has no evidence and that it doesn't have sustainability, and that programs that never been evaluated. And that's a waste of money that can be used in another way, based on evidence, with implementation science closing the gap between that evidence and the actual implementation. I think that is a main contribution in implementation science too. In my experience, most people that are involved in this are people coming from third sector, NGOs mainly, people that are looking for doing the things that really works, that are genius, really interested in doing things based in evidence and doing it right. And recently, some sectors of the government have been showing their interest in this field. Let me give you two examples. The Internal Affairs Ministry has a service called SENDA, that is a service for prevention and rehabilitation of drugs and alcohol. You call for proposals to design and deploy a online course about implementation science specifically. And some colleagues and me, we won that proposal, and we are working on that. And and the Ministry of Social Development and Families designed a manual about program design and evaluation, and they have a chapter about implementation science too. So in my experience, there is an increasing interest in the government and NGOs. And I think that academy is a little, I don't know how you say, late to move this forward, at least in my university. The rationale of implementation science can be of benefit of any government unit of anything. But especially implementation science as we know it today, I think that here in our country, there is at least 3 areas where must be or could be very significant. Healthcare, education, as you said, and social development. I think those are the 3 main. I think that one of the expressions of community empowerment should be the capability of demanding government and NGOs that the work that are intended to do with them, the programs would be or had to be quality programs based in evidence and with implementation science doing a important role in the process of implementing. That I think that's not just who found, who invest, who design, or who implement that have that responsibility. I think communities have to be aware of this and have to be empowered to ask, to demand that any program had to be based in evidence and properly implemented. When I studied psychology, I had this idea that I would be in a clinic working with patients. And when I graduated, I started to work in an NGO that is really important here in Chile called Hogar de Cristo, the Home of Christ. And that's a huge NGO. And I started to work with people with severe mental diagnosis, mainly people with schizophrenia. And I really found out that in that position, I have a social role to play. And I do the things I do because I believe that I'm doing this. By doing this, I can be part of the social transformation that my country needs. So I've been always working for people in social exclusion, people with mental disabilities, people in exclusion, social exclusion with problematic drug use, abuse, and now working with women in jail. So and different communities. So I think with the tools I have, I can be part of the change that my country needs. That is the same question that my wife asked me when I did. Why? If you already have 4 jobs,
Mhm.
uh, I was happy when I realized that I have a community of people with whom I can talk about this that made me sense a long time ago.
Mhm.
Now I have a name for it. Now I have tools. Now I have frameworks,
Mhm.
and it was a very good news for me. So I think it was inevitable for me to do it.